Welcome, everybody. It's so wonderful to see your beautiful faces. And I'm Elizabeth Friend-Ennis, class of 2016, and first year dean at One Spirit. It's so wonderful to see all of you. And want to thank right off the bat, David Renata, who will make all the good things happen this evening. Thank you so much. And I am the only presenter this evening because I'm not really presenting. I'm just going to be facilitating what I hope will be a meaningful interactive experience in the way that we're going to approach a text. Okay, we have a few more people. So let's just settle into this space. We're going to have 3 minutes of some soft music. David, if you want to go ahead and start the music. I'm going to light this candle as a symbol of inviting the light of spirit to be with us. And as we're entering into this sacred time and sacred space together, I just invite you to close your eyes if that makes you feel more comfortable. And just be aware of your breathing. You don't have to breathe any certain way, but just be aware of the gift of being breathed. And as you exhale, be aware of leaving behind any of the stresses from your day. And as you inhale, be aware of being fully present in your chair. So grateful for the gift of being safe in our homes, but also in community. So grateful for each of you. And we remember all of those who can't be here with us this evening. Ask for blessings on all of those who are suffering, whether from sickness or from war. Remember, with grace and compassion, all of those less fortunate than we are this evening. As we settle in, we invite the quiet soul voice within us to come forward, for our heart space to open. We invite Spirit to make known to us all that our soul voice wants us to know. May it be so. So, this evening we are going to do a practice called Dharma contemplation. And David, if you could put up the first slide just for a second, please. Dharma contemplation is developed and taught by Gregory Kramer of Insight Meditation Center in New York City. And before we get too much further, I just want to remind everybody that if you want to be able to see the slide and see everybody in the room, you can move your cursor to this tiny little double white line at the edge of the slide, and you can move to the right or to the left to make one side bigger or smaller, because it might be kind of nice for us to be able to see one another while we see the slide. So you can take that one down, David. Thank you. So Dharma contemplation is an approach to sacred texts that's informed both by lectio divina, which is a Christian contemplative practice of approaching sacred texts, and traditional Buddhist meditative practices. And some of what I'm sharing with you this evening comes right from this book. Gregory Kramer literally wrote the book, Dharma Contemplation. And in it, he gives us permission to play with this process, even though we are not Buddhists and I'm not Christian. So we have permission to play this evening. In Gregory Kramer's book, he says Dharma contemplation focuses its entire attention toward the immediacy of lived experience. The emphasis is on fully receiving a text, examining its explicit contents, feeling in the body the truth that it offers, and testing its truth claims against your experience. So, as I said, I'm not a Christian or a Buddhist, but I have done this process with one of my professors at Union Theological Seminary, who is actually a Hebrew Bible scholar, but studies at Insight Meditation. And I found it really fruitful. So I just wanted to share it with you. What we're going to do is we're going to take a relatively short text and become completely immersed in it. In my class at Union, we did this with a variety of texts. And when I agreed to do this tonight, I thought, oh, we can do it with something from the Old Testament, maybe a psalm, and we can do something with maybe from the Vedas. But then I realized that what really makes this process fruitful is having the time and the spaciousness for layers of meaning to unfold organically. So really, in the time that we have, we can only do one text. But if this goes well and it's something that you like and you let me know, we can do this again in another gathering on another day. And if it doesn't go well, that's okay. We will still have learned something. So I needed to pick one text. And here's the process that we're going to follow. David, if you could put up the second slide, please. So it's a pretty simple process. First, I'm going to read the text out loud and you just listen. You can close your eyes and just listen. And then we're going to let it sit for a minute. And then I'm going to invite Susie to read the text while David puts the slide up so that you can all see the text. And we'll let that sit for a minute. And then I'm going to invite everyone, as they feel moved or inspired, to just have a collage of words or phrases. If there's a word in the text that sticks out to you, either in a good way or because it stirs something uncomfortable with you, just unmute yourself and speak it into the room. And if we unmute ourselves at the same time and speak over one another, that's okay. Just try again, take turns. If someone says the word that you wanted to say, that's okay too. You can still say it. We can say the same words over and over because they mean different things to different people. So we're going to give that a juicy 8 minutes of time so that everybody has a chance to speak your word out into the room, and feel free to speak more than once. So after that time, and I'll move us through these different phases. After that, the next phase is felt impact. So what you'll say, you can unmute yourself and say into the room, when I read this word, I feel comforted. Or when I read this phrase, I feel heat in my chest and really angry. Or whatever your truth is that you feel in your heart, that you feel in your body, share that in the room. And we'll have time for that to sit. And then the next phase is more conversational, more queries and clarifications of meaning. You can say things like, I wonder if maybe this sentence here means this, or This makes me think this about the author. And you can respond to one another, and that phrase is meant to be more interactive and conversational. And then the last phase is going to be a little more silent. We'll take the text away and just see one another. And we'll talk about what we feel are the enduring insights from the experience. Like, what really feels true for me from this experience is this. Or what really came up for me in this process is this. And it might seem confusing. Don't worry that you don't know what to do at what time, because I will be guiding us. But I'm hopeful that that it'll be a fruitful conversation. Just remember to click the mute button so that the red bar goes away when you speak, and then remute yourself after you're done. Also, you can alternatively push the space bar down, give it a second to know that you've pushed it down, and then speak, and then let go of it. You have to hold it down the whole time and then let go. Either one of those ways, you can unmute yourself. So with that, I'll tell you that I had a really hard time choosing which text I wanted to use, because I didn't want to favor one tradition over another. But for me, in my personal spiritual life, poetry is sacred text. So what I decided to go with tonight is by one of my favorite sacred authors, Mary Oliver. And if David, you could take the slide down, and everyone can just listen. Close your eyes if that helps. And I'm going to read to you Wild Geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. Just take a breath. And David, if you could put up the slide. I'd like to invite Susie to read the poem.
You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert, repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains, and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things.
Just take a breath. When you feel moved, you can speak a word or a short phrase into the room without comment, just a word that sticks out.
Harsh and exciting.
Clean air.
Soft animal of your body.
Announcing your place.
Belonging.
Wild geese.
Heading home again.
Meanwhile.
Meanwhile.
No matter how lonely.
No matter how lonely.
Pebbles of the rain.
The clean air.
Lonely.
Heading home again.
You do not have to walk on your knees.
The world offers.
In the family of things.
Tell me about despair. Yours.
Love what it loves.
You don't have to be good.
Whoever you are.
Deep trees.
In the family of things.
The mountains and the rivers.
Imagination.
The sun.
Repenting.
The world.
Calls to you.
Deep trees.
The world goes on.
Over and over.
Whoever
Soft
you
animal.
are.
Heading home again.
You do not have to.
A 100 miles.
The world goes on.
Offers.
Landscape.
Be good.
Calls to you.
Exciting.
Announcing your place.
Imagination.
Rain.
How lonely.
Desert.
Heading home.
Meanwhile,
Deep trees.
Love.
Mary Oliver.
Wild.
Family.
Whoever you are.
Pebbles of the rain.
On your knees.
the soft animal of your body.
Your place.
Rain.
No matter.
You. Harsh and exciting.
100 miles.
The world offers itself.
Moving across.
let's move into the next phase. And we can share things like, when I read soft animal, I feel warm.
When I read love, I feel hopeful.
When I read, tell me about your despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. I feel a sense of spiritual companionship.
When I read, meanwhile, I feel infinite possibilities.
When I read Deep Trees, I feel held.
When I read, no matter how lonely, I feel included.
When I read To Walk on Your Knees, I feel the physical pain.
When I read You Do Not Have to Be Good, I feel release.
When I read You Do Not Have to Be Good, I feel relieved.
When I read The Mountains and the Rivers, I feel refreshed and cool.
When I read Your Place in the Family of Things, I feel included.
When I read Heading Home Again, I feel like crying. I feel surrounded by divinity within and without.
When I read Love What It Loves, I feel simplicity.
When I read Announcing Your Place, I feel somewhat lost and perplexed.
When I read High in the Clean Air, I feel refreshed and in a place of infinite possibility.
When I read Clear Pebbles of the Rain, I feel like I can remember the joy of being a child caught in a summer rainstorm.
When I read Clear Pebbles of the Rain, I feel magic.
When I read Meanwhile the World Goes On, I feel my place.
When I read In the Family of Things, I feel belonging.
When I read harsh and exciting, I'm struck by the idea that sometimes exciting things are hard.
When I read Over the Prairies and the Deep Trees, the mountains and the rivers, I feel the preciousness of our planet.
When I read over and over Announcing Your Place, I remember how many times I have to relearn and relearn and listen and listen.
When I read, whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, I feel reassured that our internal dialogue and self-deceptions can't change the reality of who we are and what the world is.
When I read, meanwhile the world goes on, I feel my impermanence in the cycles of things.
When I read for 100 miles through the desert, repenting, I feel the uselessness of repenting.
When I read, the sun, the clear pebbles of rain are moving across the landscapes. I feel the breeze as if it were caused by the world turning.
When I read moving across the landscapes, I feel like a bird. I feel like free.
When I read the wild geese high in the clean air, heading home again, I think of in a sense, imposition of our humanness on non-human life, the assessments.
When I read, you do not have to be good, I see an image of the source of life shaking its head and laughing at our foolishness.
When I read, you do not have to be good, I feel liberated.
When I read over and over announcing your place, I feel the security of the mundane.
When I read heading home again, I just am filled with joy.
When I read Love What It Loves, I feel free.
When I read Love What It Loves, I feel touch, skin, tenderness, sensuality.
When I read the family of things, I feel grateful and I feel a sense of home.
When I read Love What It Loves, it evokes thoughts of what is natural and organic.
When I read moving across the landscapes, I feel life's journey and its changes and the phases of myself that have been and are yet to come.
When I read the wild geese, I remember that they rotate who is in the lead from moment to moment as they support each other, carry each other in the draft that they create. And move both individually and as a collective being.
When I read the wild geese, I smile at a very, very pleasant childhood memory, living in the suburbs of Long Island. When the geese would move in their V formations overhead, it was an event, and everybody came outside and was looking in the sky, listening and watching when they were migrating. And that doesn't seem to happen anymore. But for me, it's a beautiful, beautiful memory. 50 years ago or so, who knows at this point. Thank you for that segue, Reverend Diane.
When I read the wild geese high in the air, I remember here in Maryland seeing hundreds of geese gleaning corn in the winter fields and lifting together when they were spooked and then settling again before their migration, where they do settle into those V formations beautifully.
When I read the word geese, I remember when we were on a retreat being taken down to the Hudson River from Stony Creek and seeing the geese all along the river. And I brought home a big goose feather. So I always have that feather, which is very illegal to bring anything like that into Australia, but still I did it.
This is a really good segue into the next phase, which is meant to be more conversational. So I've loved the memories evoked by wild geese. And Leslie, when you were speaking, you reminded me of when I was a kid too in Wisconsin, watching when a V of birds migrating was in the sky. It really was a big deal. And we would all be like, oh, look, they're heading south for the winter. And just as a kid, my awareness of the magic of that event was such a consuming sensation. And thank you for reminding me of that.
Wonderful. Yeah. And I'm a little torn at the moment because I want to, in my head now, I'm, ping-ponging between the older memories, these wonderful memories we had as children, and what happens now. About a year and a half ago, I lived very close to a beautiful park, and many tens upon tens of geese, as well as other birds, made it their home. And they paired up for the springtime with their nesting. And I would go there every morning and I would practice my Qigong. And what I noticed, when it came time for the eggs to hatch, there were only about 2 pairs of geese out of all these birds that ended up with any fledglings. And I realized what was happening. It's whatever it is that is used to, they put it on the ground or whatever it is, but it's a way of culling the population. But what I noticed, which was very despairing for me, when it came time for the eggs to hatch, and the birds were waiting and waiting and waiting, and they walked around in bewilderment because there were no eggs hatching. And the mother would come back and sit, but they had no little ones. And they would walk about. You could feel it, really. I mean, you could feel the bewilderment. And going back to how we feel from the previous part, I felt so helpless and I felt so sad. And I took an honest look at how the world has changed in certain ways. Yeah, the imbalances of the ecosystem, and then what we as humans end up doing as a result. I mean, so, but still I have those beautiful memories.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I didn't want to bring anything negative, but I didn't know if it was allowed.
Everything is allowed.
I guess you do not have to be good.
I'd like to pitch in with our local geese here on the eastern shore of Maryland. The other day, I was at the grocery store, big box grocery store, main road, very main road intersection. Across that intersection is a pond that's pretty dirty and pretty neglected. And then there are more big box stores. And I've often noticed geese in there. Well, this was a few days ago, and darned if there weren't 3 mother geese and 8 goslings who were not tiny, but they were young, striding across the road, across the parking lot. They owned it. And it's like total resilience in what was clearly not a normal habitat, but they made it theirs. It was, it made me laugh. So there's also that power and resilience.
Suppose I have to share this moment of this past fall, late fall. In the evening, walking outside, bringing the dog outside. And my arrival, it seemed to cue the divine to say, now. And what I witnessed was a V of geese in a full moon, inviting me to sing out loud. Wild geese that fly with the moon on their wings. And it was like the only time in my life that I will ever probably have that opportunity to witness it and acknowledge it with my song. Yeah, that's it.
Susie touched on this earlier, but I find let the soft animal of your body love what it loves, to be just an incredibly sensual, yeah, evocative line.
I wonder if the poet in this poem is challenging our self-centeredness, our sense of self-importance, our placing ourselves sort of as in the middle of everything. You know, you tell me about your despair and I'll tell you about mine. And we imagine that we're lonely. We imagine that we're separate. We imagine that, you know, there's this judgmental God who is watching whether we're being good or not. And meanwhile, the rest of creation is going about its living and inviting us and reminding us that we are simply part of all of that. No matter how caught up we get in our own internal dialogue and the world is sort of saying, you know, come back home to your place as part of this natural world and sense your belonging instead of holding yourself so separate.
I wonder if the poet is inviting us to consider the line, you only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves, for us to consider how do we get there and what have we done to make it inaccessible to us? Is there something before that? What have I done to make that a difficult thing or have made that a rigid way of being that keeps me from accessing that simple act? I wonder.
And sorry, I need to, when I read, on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting, I can feel the physical abrasion on my knees and the heat and collapse. I don't know how people have done that before us, and they have. And it brought to mind the theme that we talked about at One Spirit, which is spiritual injury by organized religion. And it's all summed up right there. And it just is so, so painful in historic, in physical, in spiritual terms.
Thank you so much for that, because my mother was in that kind of trauma in her lifetime. Yes, thank you. I don't speak about it much, but we all knew about it because she never let us forget. Yeah. Thank you so much for that.
I wonder then what a world would have been like without any religion. To injure people and steer them, to give them the way of life and the thoughts that they have. I wonder what life would be like. I can't imagine it really, but I guess the animals live without religion, and the earth lives without religion. And meanwhile, the world goes on.
The world goes on, and the birds outside of Elizabeth's room remind us to wake up. Wake up and see our place as one in the family of things.
So let's take the text away. David, if you don't mind taking the slide down. And maybe just share what feels like an enduring truth for you from the poem, from what was shared, from the experience. What feels true to you?
Give it time, and the truth will prevail. Gentle, loving time.
I have a beautiful feeling of being with like-minded souls, with my people. And it's beautiful. And the birds are going mad here.
So what endures for me is this container that Mary Oliver created, where there's literally everything: loneliness, togetherness, the past, the present, permission, restraint. It's all there. It's like yin and yang in the container of the sphere, the circle. Life.
I suppose I'm going to go on a limb here. It feels like I've been given permission to be exactly who I was supposed to be.
Yes, I feel the same way. I have enjoyed this gathering so very much. And I feel it's a wonderful, wonderful, lovely and loving way to get to know people. Wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody.
Love is love is love, whether you are lonely, whether you are in despair, whether you are good, whether you are on your way home or not.
This feels like a good place in the family of things.
And for me, the enduring truth is that we have a place in the family of things.
And that each day we can name that place, whatever it is and whatever we want it to be, and that's okay.
It's very beautiful, Corey. Just to think of naming that latitude we have, that moment we have to choose, where we are and what we what we belong to. So appreciate that reminder again, and that naming.
I don't know if this is the right time, Rev Elizabeth, but I have heard and read that poem at least a dozen times. And this is such a new experience. It's very precious. It's very surprising. So thank you very much.
I'm so grateful for each of you for showing up and sharing this with me. I love this process, and I'm really, really happy that you could all be here and do this together.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
And David had a wonderful idea to play some music for us to end our evening. So David, I'll let you explain.
I'm going to be playing about the last 5 minutes of the Sibelius Fifth Symphony, which is specifically about geese. And it was inspired by the flight of geese he saw in his native country of Finland about a little over 100 years ago. And it is perfect musical embodiment of the world calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting. And I thought, I quickly queued it up. I didn't know I would do this. And I'll play it for you now. I hope you like it. It also has one of the most unusual endings of a symphony in the whole classical repertory. It's like he doesn't know how to stop a natural force. And so I'll just play this about the last 4 minutes and a half and 4 minutes, 48 seconds of the Sibelius Fifth Symphony.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much, David. What a great idea.
Wow.
But I cannot thank you enough, Reverend Elizabeth. This is the affirmation I needed today. And thank you, David, for the music. And I just love you all, Reverend Diane, forever. I do have to move on to another Zoom. I hate to leave this room, though. It's so full. It is so full.
Thanks for making it a juicy evening.
Yes, yes, yes. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you.
night,
Good night,
everybody.
everyone.